On my right hand side is my big watch box, and in front of me is what I would call the pit. This is the podium of watches in my collection, and this is the pit of watches in my collection, where they go to die, because I don't wear them anymore for whatever reason. And in this video, we're going to be talking about why I don't wear the watches in front of me anymore, why they're sitting in my watch graveyard, and also what has made the podium, as well as a couple of new watches that I've peppered in to this collection. All right, guys, so let's start with this. Let's start with the Omega Moonswatch. This is the Omega Moonswatch Mission to Mercury. And there's an interesting story behind this watch. There's a sentimental story behind this watch. I was filming a project with Adrian Barker about 3 years ago, and I helped him kind of film it. I droned for him. I was the videographer on that project. And at the end of the project in Zermatt, all 3 of the boys that were filming and helping with that project got watches. And we got Omega Moonswatches. And this was the point where the hype was so large that you couldn't actually buy one of these watches. You would walk into a store and they'd laugh you out the door. But I don't know, we just got lucky and we managed to get these watches. And this watch still represents a very key moment in time for me. I mean, it's a time when my videography was starting to be recognized out with just my family and friends, essentially. People were starting to recognize my work, so it was very, very special. And this marks that moment in time. But the problem is, I already have a Speedmaster, and it's in the podium, and we're going to talk about it very soon. So this watch, as I'm sure a lot of other people's Moonswatches did, it went in to the graveyard. All right, so next up is this. This is the Casio F9 1W, and literally, it's probably one of the best watches that I own. Actually, it doesn't deserve its place in the graveyard. I'm gonna put it on top of the watch box. The reason that I love this watch so much is that I've literally had this for about 4 years now. It was £10, and it still works. This is like my 4th iteration of this watch, because whenever I lose one, I just buy another one. I don't get the fear about losing it. I don't get the fear about scratching it. I'm not afraid to wear it, especially when I travel to dangerous countries. So it is the watch that I travel with a lot, and it deserves its place kind of on top of the watch box. It's not fully in the graveyard, but I wouldn't say it's fully in or on the podium. The next watch we're going to look at is this. This is the Christopher Ward 12 Glacier Blue. I got this watch about maybe 2 years ago, and actually at the start I wore this a bunch. I wore it so much, and actually it replaced my Tissot PRX in a lot of ways. I kind of just preferred the way that this looked that little bit. With that said, over the last year I've totally fallen out of love with it. It's not to say it's a bad watch. It's not to say I don't like the design, but I think the 70s inspired stuff is just a little bit overdone now. It's just, the industry has milked that cow quite a lot now. And it's not to say that I don't like it. Again, I do love it, but I don't know, it just doesn't get any wrist time. The next watch on the list is this. This is the Seiko 5 Peanuts Snoopy Edition, a watch that was limited edition, and I bought purely because of the hype and also because I wanted a Snoopy watch. And I've probably worn this a grand total of like under 10 times. And that's really sad. That is genuinely really sad, because actually it's a really, really nice watch. But again, guys, there's only so much wrist time that you can give one watch, and this just isn't cutting it at the moment. And the reason that it's not cutting it at the moment is because I have a Seiko lying in here that I actually have a really great connection with, and I'll talk about it in a second. So it honestly just isn't making the cut. And I do think that maybe it's time to part with this watch. I don't think there's that much of a sentimental attachment that I have to this watch. I maybe did buy into the hype that little bit much. So it's sitting in the graveyard and it's not moved in a good year and a half. And I think if you have a watch that's sitting in the graveyard that hasn't moved for that amount of time, maybe it's time to say bye. On that note, guys, let me know if you have any watches that are sitting in the graveyard, what watches are sitting in the graveyard, and which ones have made the podium. Also, we have a couple of new watches peppered in here that we're going to talk about very, very soon. So I'd stay tuned for that. All right, so the next watch that I've given it graveyard status, but there's a reason that I've given it graveyard status. This is my Oris Artelaire skeleton watch, and this is the first luxury watch that I ever owned. It was given to me for my birthday from my parents, and they knew that I had kind of an obsession when it came to like components and engines. I like skeletonized stuff because I like to see into the mechanics. I was a watch nerd from a young age. So they got me this, and it was incredible. It still is incredible. It still works perfectly well, but it's one of those watches that means so much to me that you end up not wearing. It almost goes past the point of wearability because the sentimental value is too much. And that's what this watch is to me. And you know, although it's in the graveyard, it's in the graveyard for a reason. And it's something that I'll never sell, something that I'll never part with, and something that has a really special place in my heart. When I look at this, I'm reminded of not only being a kid, but of my mum and dad. Okay, so what's next? Let's pick this. This is the Hamilton Khaki Fueled Mechanical. This is the OG, the original Hamilton Khaki Fueled Mechanical. I actually sent this away to Hamilton to get repaired because I broke it. I was a very naughty boy. I was climbing up a hill. I took the crown out, fell, hit a rock, and the crown went, and it did something to the mainspring, and that was that. The Hamilton Khaki Fueled Mechanical remains one of my favorite Hamilton watches. And whenever I'm out and about, whenever I'm traveling, whenever I'm doing excursions, especially in Scotland, this was normally the watch I'd wear. With that said, we'll get onto a watch that's replaced it very, very soon. Okay, so the next watch is an interesting one. This is actually one of my new watches, or newish watches. It's a watch that I didn't show anyone for a very long time until I went to Iceland with James. There's an hour-long video. If you want to listen to some watch chats and look at beautiful Iceland, then definitely head to it. And I did talk about this a little bit in that, but not many people know I actually own this watch. This is the Tudor Black Bay Heritage Harrods edition. I honestly am a little bit of a Tudor fanboy, and I think that I bought this watch because it was that little bit different. It was something a little bit more special. And actually, at the time that I bought it, let me tell you something. At the time that I bought it about 4 or 5 years ago, they were on number 507, and they're still in production today. So I'm gonna guess they're on maybe a number 6,000. So they're still producing them, but it just shows how early I bought this watch. I love the green bezel on this thing. I love the tip of green to the second hand. I love the subtle kind of Kermit feel to this watch. And actually, something that I said to James is that I've been very scared to wear this just out of what people will think. And also, I really want to do a collaboration between Chisholm Hunter and Tudor. I think that in a, heritage model like this, a Black Bay Heritage, would be absolutely sick. But I think that I should wear this more. At the moment, it's in the graveyard because I've been too scared to wear it. It's not anything to do with the quality and brilliance of this watch because I love it. But I've just been too scared to wear it. And that's why it's not been getting wrist time. But I think I'm going to switch it onto a NATO. And once I've switched it onto the NATO, I'm going to start wearing it even more. Okay, so next on the list is one that's been in the collection for a very long time and that I probably need to part with. It's a Certina DS Action Diver 40mm. I actually really like the DS Action Diver range. I especially like the new Action Diver 40.5mm. The double security concept, which is the DS concept in that watch, is insane. It actually broke you know how you get watches that are resistant to a certain amount of G? It broke the G machine that they used to test it before they could measure how many Gs it was actually resistant to. So they think it's way above what it actually is. But we have a full breakdown of that watch. But yeah, this is a watch that I loved it, but it didn't have that much sentimental value. I probably do need to get rid of it. And if I do get rid of it, I think that I would quite like a Certina DS Action Diver 40.5mm. Right, so the last watch that's in the graveyard is this. This is the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 green dial. I definitely bought into the 70s hype that a lot of other people bought into, hence the Christopher Ward as well. And I've just kind of floated away from the hype over a very long time, over a couple of years. It's just not, it doesn't get me like it used to. It doesn't. And it's not to say this is a bad watch. In fact, I really like this watch. But this is what I choose. Watches in here. And now we're moving on to the watch podium of my collection. Right, okay, where do we, well, there's a good place to start. Let's start with this. This is the Omega Seamaster 300 commonly known as the King. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but in short, I used to watch James Bond with my dad, and it's a very special thing to me. And I always had an obsession with James Bond, and he obviously wears Omega, and as a result, I bought the Omega Seamaster 300 white dial, commonly known as the King. Now, I've gone through every iteration, every variant of this watch, as you guys will know, I've gone through the rubber, the bracelet, and the NATO. I wore the NATO for a very long time, and the rubber is what I'll always come back to. It's rugged, it's tough, I'm not worried about it, it's comfortable. It just is the king. Okay, so next up is one that made the cut by the skin of its teeth, literally by the skin of its teeth, but I do have a plan for it. This is my Grand Seiko American exclusive, and the reason that I don't wear it enough is because of how dressy it is, because of that Zaratsu polishing that's on the bracelet, that's on the dial. Every time I get a scratch on this watch, I have a fit, I have a strop. It really upsets me. But then, again, I was in Iceland and I spoke to James, and he did something very interesting with his shunbun. He actually replaced the strap on his shunbun with a NATO strap. So he replaced the bracelet for a NATO. And because he did that, he wore that watch all the time rather than just in dressy scenarios. And there's an interesting thing we do in the industry. We kind of put watches in a box. That's a dress watch, so I'll only wear that for special occasions. And as a result, it doesn't get worn, and that's a shame. But in changing that, in kind of changing your perception there and flipping on a new strap like a NATO, the whole personality of the watch changes. And also it means that you can wear the watch so much more and really get, you know, wear out of it, really love it. And I think that's something that has definitely been missing from this model. So I think what I'm gonna do is take the bracelet off of this and then put on a NATO strap, and then it means hopefully that I'll wear it a lot more. I do love this watch. It marks a very special period in my life, but I just don't wear it as much as I should. So next on the podium is this. This is an interesting one. So this is my Omega Seamaster 300 meters 50th anniversary James Bond limited edition. So I've obviously got an infatuation with James Bond, but I also have an infatuation with limited stuff that's a little bit more rare, like the Grand Seiko here or the Tudor Harrods edition. And this just spoke to me in so many different ways. There's so many limited edition flares on this watch that only real watch enthusiasts will get. And that's exactly where the wearability of this watch kind of comes in. Whenever I am going to an event, whenever it's a watch enthusiast base of kind of people that are there, this is the watch that I'll wear. And the reason being is that only they will understand how special this watch is, and thus it strikes a conversation. And I really, really like that. I really like the fact that it's not common, that a watch enthusiast looking at this watch will strike up a conversation based on the fact that it's a little bit different. There's only about 7,007 of these in the world, and that is still quite rare, especially for the production numbers of Omega. So this is a really special one to me. It doesn't get as much wrist time as, let's say, the King, but it's definitely my more special, my special watch for special occasions. All right, so this is the Seiko that I actually wear. This is the Seiko SPB 381. I actually got this watch quite recently. It was at the beginning of the year, and it's purely because I was blown away by a lot of the details, but there was a kind of sentimental thing that happened that kind of links me to this watch, and whenever I put it on now, I'm reminded of it. So I went to Sulawesi to film this watch for a review, and in Sulawesi, it really blew me away. But more specifically, the moment that I remember in particular was we were shooting under the water, and essentially you have these lakes in Sulawesi that separated themselves from the ocean a very, like, thousands and thousands of years ago. And as a result of separating themselves, you have these jellyfish, hundreds of thousands of jellyfish that sit in these lakes, but because of the separation between the sea, they no longer carry stings because there's no natural predators. So they've evolved with no stings. This is a really weird story and kind of but you'll understand in a minute. I was testing this watch under the water, seeing how it would cope, and also doing a lot of photography. And while I was there, I took a couple of photos and videos of my girlfriend that I've been dreaming of for years, ever since I was a kid. In particular, I got a black and white photo of my girlfriend Holly's hand out with the jellyfish just above. And this was the watch that was there through that experience and through that bucket shot. Also, my job is quite unpredictable, and as a result there's not much stability that comes with my job because I'm traveling so much, and spending that time with my girlfriend and you know, exploring Sulawesi with her and making those experiences, it was really, really special to me. So this watch literally survived everything I put it through. It's a GMT watch, so it does read multiple time zones at the one time, which I needed when I was in Sulawesi. It's green, it went perfectly with the vibes, the tropical vibes of Sulawesi. And I know that it's that little bit more expensive for a Seiko, but I just absolutely adore the way it looks and feels on the wrist. Yeah, it's a little bit chunky. It could be a little bit smaller, but to me, at least, it's pretty much perfect. Right, so next up on the podium, we have this. This is my Tudor Black Bay Heritage ETA. Now, because it's an ETA version, it is the old version, and there's a couple of changes that they've made from the new versions. So firstly, you have the rose at the 12 o'clock mark instead of the shield, which they've obviously changed. You still have that tube running to the crown that's got the burgundy on it, which I absolutely love. The teeth have been changed. The bracelet, of course, has been changed. And obviously the movement has been changed because this is an ETA movement, which Tudor don't do anymore, especially on the Black Bay variants, because they have a Coskin Metas certified movement at the moment. Technically speaking, this watch isn't as good as the new Tudors, but to me, this is absolutely perfect. The imperfections of this watch, the supposed man-made imperfections, to me, make this perfect. It makes it that little bit more rare. It makes it that little bit more refined, and it makes it just that little bit different. This is the first watch that I can remember. I think I got this before my Omega Seamaster 300 meters, and it's the first watch that I can remember going out to like a bar or something like that, and I was dressed up and I wore this, and it really added to the feel of where I was going. It really made me excited to go out, and it's so weird that a watch can do that, but it really, really did. And this is a watch that I'm never going to sell. I'm never going to get rid of, because firstly, it's rare. Secondly, it's very, very different to what you get nowadays. And thirdly, I have such a sentimental attachment to this model. Next up it's an interesting one. This is my Omega Speedmaster Apollo 11, and oh, what can I say about this watch? So I actually announced that I got this watch after announcing that I was going to get a white dial Speedmaster. So I ended up not getting the white dial Speedmaster. A buddy of mine called me and said, listen, I've got this watch, you want to see it? And I said yes, and I ended up buying it essentially from him. That's the great thing about the watch community. But I remember when I first got this watch, I thought, I'm not going to use this for just the dressy scenario. I'm not going to use this for the typical, suit and tie. I want to really work this watch and really use it. It's meant to be in a spaceship. Why wouldn't I be able to wear it in Finland or Norway or any of these cold, rugged places? And that's exactly what I did. I took this watch to Finland to test it to the limit when I first got it. And it was incredible. And I actually remember specifically my girlfriend, again, she'd never seen the Northern Lights. She'd never seen the Aurora. So we went out to the top of this hill, super, super dark, super, super late, and we kind of hoped and prayed, because that's a lot of what the Northern Lights are, just hopes and prayers that we'd see the Northern Lights. And it took a couple of hours, but after a couple of hours, there was an explosion of green and even like pink that came through in the Northern Lights. And I remember looking at my girlfriend's face, because she it's the first time she'd ever seen them, and she was just blown away by what she was seeing. And the fact that this correlates to space, and we were also looking at the stars while that all happened, it lives with me, and it will live with me forever. It will live with me, until the day I die. And at the end of the day, guys, that's all these watches are. They're kind of capsules to throw us back to a period that we wore them at one point. Whether that's looking at the Northern Lights, photographing a jellyfish, or with your mum and dad watching a movie. They're doors into your past. That's what these watches are, and that's what they should be. Yeah, so listen, the correlation with the Aurora, space, my girlfriend's reaction, also all the limited edition flares on this watch, also the fact that it's a Speedmaster and it's just a bloody good looking watch, all play a part. Okay, this is one of my favorites. Still one of my favorite. Hamilton's just there's phenomenal brands. So this is the Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition. And I actually got this watch 2 years ago now when I went to Banff. And I was actually traveling around Banff with Adrian. And I remember specifically, and I'm sorry if you guys have heard this story before, but I have a specific memory, a kind of really poignant memory. Adrian and I had been shooting sunrises and sunsets for like 3 days. And we were both absolutely knackered. And it got to sunset one day, and Adrian said, listen, Harrison, I really want to go to bed. And I said, Adrian, this is the clearest night that it's been. I really think we should stay out and try and see the stars. I'm exhausted as well, but we're only going to be here once, and it would be amazing to see the stars. And so he kind of moaned and groaned, and I kind of moaned and groaned as well, but we both kind of came to the decision that it was the right thing to do. And we went to this lake. It was called Two Jacks Lake. Totally clear, totally still. Not one ripple in the water. And as the sun went down, the kind of dull orange glow started to fade away and in turn for the blue, the dark blue, the stars came out. And as the stars came out, the stars started reflecting off the water. And as the stars came out and went deeper into the night, the Milky Way came out. And as the Milky Way was coming out, I saw Adrian's face light up. He'd never seen something like that. And he was doing tons of astrophotography. I was actually teaching him how to do astrophotography at that point. And I was taking photos of the watches. I was taking time lapses of the night, the stars kind of going around. And it was just such a surreal experience. We sat there, we talked about life, we talked about family, we talked about watches, of course. And it was such an incredible experience, all shared with a watch that can literally do it all. I mean, it literally has a compass on the bezel. It's insane. So yeah, Hampton Khaki Field Expedition, it's all right with me, and an experience I'll never forget. Okay, so this one's a new one, and it's gonna be kind of weird to a lot of people, but it's not weird to me. This is the King Seiko Metropolis Silver 1969, or it has the model number SJE109J1. King Seiko is a brand that kind of gets overlooked, really. I mean, it gets overlooked because of Seiko. Seiko's such a huge staple that King Seiko kind of gets neglected. It gets pushed to the side. But the quality in this thing is absolutely insane. It's unbelievable. I think maturing in your watch journey is going for more vintage stuff. It's not following the hype as much, but thinking, well, I find that cool, so I don't really care what anyone else thinks. I'm gonna get it. And that's kind of what happened with this watch. It actually represents a key period in my watch collecting journey. A lot of the time, and I'll admit it, especially when I was younger, I was influenced by people. I was influenced by people saying, well, that Rolex is cool, or that Omega's cool, or, that Tudor's cool. And I'd go, yeah, you know what, you're totally right. And then I get it, because the masses liked it rather than me individually thinking, wow, that's really cool. But this was totally different. This is something that not many people have seen. This is something that not many people know about. And it's something that I just kind of, I don't know why I like it so much, but I just do. I mean, you look at it and you think, boring. You think the bracelet's a bit weird. You think the fact that the lugs are so flat and elongated, strange. And I'd agree with you. But again, it's the imperfections of this watch that kind of make it perfect. And whenever I go into work now, especially in the office, this is what I'm wearing. It's taking time away from every other watch because it's a bit weird, because it's a bit understated, a bit quote unquote boring. And for that reason, it's at the top of the podium. And that was the pit and the podium of my watch collection at the moment. Let me know what is in the pit and the podium of your watch collection at the moment. If you're having the same issue as me, please let me know, because it means I'm not alone in this weird watch world we live in. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button or follow our Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches, or my Instagram at HB Lifelens, or the podcast, the Into the Mind podcast. And I'll see you guys real soon.